I've been at The Guardian for 20 years and my route was really tortuous. I started off at a cowboy outfit in Stockport who produced computer magazines, and then they sacked me. Then the union insisted that I was reinstated, and then I worked there for about a year, and then I worked at Haymarket, which was run by Michael Heseltine, for about a year, was freelance for a while afterwards, and gradually worked my way here by starting doing subbing shifts. And about 4 years after I started doing subbing shifts, they finally gave me a job. One of the people that I was most passionate about was Dwayne Brooks, who was the boy who was attacked with Stephen Lawrence, and then he was victimised by lawyers and the police, etc., etc. They finally allowed me to do a piece on Dwayne when we were doing the Monday interview slot. That was because they couldn't find a celebrity for that week, and it ended up as a very close friendship, and we ended up writing a book together, and it was one of the pieces that I was most proud of. I'm really swotty actually. I always surprise myself by how swotty I am. So what I do is I like to go back to the first cuts, which is difficult sometimes because we've thrown away too many of the cuttings files. Because if you look back to the beginning of someone's career, that's when you're going to find the real surprises, when they're less guarded. Quite often if you go through cuts, you'll find all the obvious things to ask, but it'll be friends who will, or people you know, who will say, actually ask them about that. And in a way, that's what you're there as. You're there as a representative of the public. A friend said when I was going out to interview Woody Allen, he said, oh, I've always been desperate to know, how come he's so ugly, but he does so brilliantly with women? In the interview, I kept trying to bring it up, and every time I started, I'd end up going, so tell me about your new film. I was really embarrassing, and finally I did ask him, and he loved the question. He absolutely adored it because he'd spent his whole life thinking about it. He gave me an answer that was basically like a PhD, went on for pages. Sometimes it's easier if you don't like someone to convey why, whereas if you really admire someone, it's harder to not sound a bit sucky. Or to be a bit dull. I mean, for example, I interviewed Desmond Tutu, and I just thought he was brilliant. He was wonderful. He was really, you just felt you were in the presence of specialness. But that is actually quite hard to write up. And I can't remember anything about the interview. I hope it was good. I don't know, but he was great anyway. It's interesting because I interviewed Cheryl Cole a few weeks ago, and everyone was like, what was it like meeting Cheryl? What was it like meeting Cheryl? I can't remember that much about it. I didn't think she was that interesting. I mean, she was quite nice. But a week later, I met Jay-Z. I'd not listened to his music really. I knew he was married to Beyonce. And so I started reading up about him, started listening to his music, and found, God, I really like this. It was just an incredible story of someone who'd come from selling crack on the streets of New York, not for 6 months, but for basically 15 years, to becoming this corporate giant, both as a rapper and as a businessman. And then I went into his office and it was up 39 stories, and we were looking over the Empire State Building, and I felt incredibly moved. It was like seeing the American dream come to life. And he was nice with it. He was incredibly nice and interesting and funny and interested. And I was starstruck about someone I'd never cared about before. There are lots of people I like, actually. I think maybe I'm liking people more than I used to, which might be a bad thing. Comedians, I tend not to get on particularly well with. Comedians, I think, are often kind of a bit bitter and twisted. But yeah, there are loads of good people in the world.